So I think this is a very difficult time we're coming into, because the difficult conversations are going to start. And one of the things we like to do is we like to anticipate what webinars we should do next. And a couple of weeks ago, we said, at this point in time, people will be probably bringing back people for recall notice. If they haven't, the government will probably start to drop little crumbs indicating that we will be returning slowly into, coming out of social isolation. So that raises a whole bunch of questions. I got an email from a client this morning, just as I was getting ready, and she said, "Hi, I'm thinking of bringing back people. Can you tell me what kind of safety things I should be thinking about? I'm in my office all day today. Give me a call." So I quickly just emailed her to make sure she felt assured that I would get back to her. So we're going to have that conversation for her today as she brings people back. What are some of the safety things that they'll do? One of the things we'll be doing in next Friday's session is we'll talk about strategies on how to ramp up, because people will be starting to think about them, and sometimes a reassurance of the fact that what they're doing is on the right track will be good. So that will be next Friday's webinar presentation. So we're just coming up to about a minute. I do encourage you to put in the chat box some difficult conversations. Again, just 2 words, giving the nature of it, because I think that's important for us to understand. What are some of those conversations that we found that have been difficult? What are some of the conversations we found that we're avoiding? Because that will help us figure out how we start to deal with them in the future. And my session today will help focus on helping people find a method, some steps that really will help decrease the stress, decrease the time thinking about what I have to say, when will I say it, to one is I need to do this, this is how I'll do it, and allow your confidence and your comfort level and some tips to help you start that conversation. And it won't be so bad. And like anything you practice, the more you do it, the more it becomes natural and more comfortable. It may never be comfortable in some circumstances, but at least it's manageable. And that's the goal of the session today, is to help you gain some comfortness or overcome the reluctance to have those difficult conversations. So I'm glad a lot of people have decided that they want to participate in the session today, and I'm hoping that you'll have a takeaway that will help you handle that next conversation without too much angst, too much awkwardness, and that wasn't so bad, so you'll keep going. So it's just 1 minute after 10. I do want to respect people's time. I know some people will continue to enter, but I will start our session. So welcome to our session today, and I would like to share a couple of things before we get started. Diane Matthew and Jenny Ho, who you see on the screen here, are part of my team. So if you have any questions, put them on the chat box, because we do have a Q&A at the end, and address them to Jenny if you want to be private about it, or if you just want to post it for everyone to see. Typically, there's a bar at the top or the bottom. If you can't see it, click in that area and you'll see it, and you'll see that there's a chat box. I do encourage you to look at the chat box. Jenny will be my eyes as I focus on the presentation, but Jenny will be my eyes as we move forward. So I'm going to start my PowerPoint presentation for you. And I'm having that same problem where my slideshow happens to be underneath one of the chat box things. Yes, thank you, Jenny. Please do that. Sometimes my slideshow gets, the icon is exactly over the Zoom, and I cannot do that. Okay, so I have that now. So welcome to COVID-19, Tough Decisions for Business Owners. I encourage people to put themselves on mute if you know you are not on mute. There will be time at the end where I will answer questions. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat box and we will answer them. Or if you want to have a dialogue with the group, then come on and unmute yourself and we'll talk and I will help work through that with you. So today's session is our 11th in a series of webinars, which we do bi-weekly. And today's focus is how to master difficult conversations at work. And if you want more practice, because we're not doing practice today, but if you want some practice, then Friday's session will be EP12 will be on case studies. And I'll talk about some case studies and how you would handle them when we get to Friday. We developed this series going on 6 weeks ago now to really help managers, business owners, and HR decision makers to provide tips and strategies to help you through these tough decisions. Every week, every day, almost seems like a new event that's happening. And one of those coming up now is this ability to resume in a slow fashion our economy. And so that's got people thinking about what's happening next. And again, one of my clients texted me just before our session today, telling me that she wants to have her staff return and what are some of the safety concerns. If you want to tag us, if you're a social media buff, I've got the tags at PeopleBright and hashtag COVID-19 TDBO, which is Tough Decisions for Business Owners. A little bit about myself. I am the founder and president of PeopleBright Consulting and the creator of a concept called Connect with Rev Up, which I'll share with you later in our presentation. My husband and I founded a company, an engineering company called iTrans, and through that, I learned how to become a work culture specialist, and we actually were recognized as one of the top 10 best workplaces in Canada. Our company grew from 2 to 125, and we had 7 offices across Canada, and we made it special. We wanted our staff to feel that they were growing and that they were being challenged in ways that would help them professionally grow, as well as to be in a work culture where people cared and supported each other. I've worked in various backgrounds, and so that includes working in healthcare. I started my career as a nurse. And human resources, of course, which is my pet passion that I do right now. I have years working in our engineering company, other professional services, IT, and not-for-profit organizations. So I come with a diverse background, and I really understand business as a business owner, as well as the expertise that I have with human resources. What we're going to cover today is we're going to update you with legislation and focus on some of the key ones. The slide will be busy, but focusing on rent, the Regional Relief Recovery Fund, and the Recovery Plan. Then we'll go into the actual how to master difficult conversations. And what I want people to understand is the nature of difficult conversations. What are some of the stats? What is the impact of avoiding difficult conversations? The next thing then I will share is tips and strategies, and share with you 5 tips and strategies and the value of listening. I think that is the big key thing to do. Moving on, we'll be using the Connect with Rev Up to develop trusting relationships, and the use of that and an assessment tool called Fascination Advantage. I want to briefly highlight those two because I think ongoing it will help you make your difficult conversations even easier. And then how can we help will be the last focus of our day. So difficult conversations. Why do people hate having difficult conversations? I want you to go ahead and put in the chat box some of those reasons that you have or you've heard others have about why we hesitate to have these difficult conversations. I'm going to post a few, but add to it in the chat box because I think it really does help all of us. I think I missed a slide here. Oh, I don't see it. All right. Oh, maybe I moved it to later. So here are some of the ideas that I thought about, and I would love people to add to the chat box to see if there's any additional ones. So first thing, we don't want to hurt people's feelings. So we say, oh, well, I don't want to hurt I don't want to hurt Sally's feelings. So I'm not going to tell her that people are saying that she's not pulling her weight. Other people may choose procrastination. They say, oh, I don't want to do it. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. And, 2 weeks goes by and say, yeah, I should be doing it, but I'm so scared. People will avoid it. They'll be afraid. Emotions are, when you have difficult conversations, it's because you feel it's an emotional issue and things are going to escalate and and be even more awkward. So you don't know what to say, you don't know how people are going to say things. So what do? You just shy away from it. There's a lack of confidence. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say when somebody's passed on. I don't know how to deal with a person who's going to yell at me. So there is a lack of confidence there. And again, not knowing what to say, not knowing how to say it. Jenny, were there any others that came through on the no?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, share some of those with us.
Cheryl said, I worry that it may damage a work relationship that is already strained.
Hmm.
And Amy Elizabeth said, don't know how the person is going to react.
Yep.
Adrian said, challenge with power imbalances.
Yes. All good things. Thank you for sharing those, because I I think we do avoid it because we don't know what people are going to say, and you don't want to disturb relationships or if they're already strained. So when I talk about Connect with Rev Up and Fascination Advantage, it's helping you build your toolbox to figure out how to build relationships so when you can have those awkward, difficult conversations. I put the slides in the wrong place. So here's the slide that I wanted to share about the updated legislation. And in the updated legislation, the ones I really want to highlight, this is for reference. So when you review it later on, you can see some of the changes, but it can be a big platter array of opportunities. A couple of weeks ago now, the Canadian Emergency Relief Benefit included part-time and seasonal workers now. So you can go into the legislation and check to see what those changes are. What I want to focus on is the wage subsidy. That application actually started this week on Monday, and it is for a maximum of $847 per week, which is the equivalent of somebody who's currently making a salary of $1,129. That's what 75% is, 847. So that's not a lot of money. So if you've got people, I can't remember the amount, over 65,000 for sure, you will be needing to look at topping up that amount as well. The legislation has what came on site was the application page. So I was in there last night to see, and it's very complicated and very detailed, because you really do have to make sure who's applicable, how much you need to how much you will get, and that's filling in. So there's a calculator in the step-by-step process. I haven't walked through it in a lot of detail, but it looks very detailed. You will need a lot of time when you're filling this out, and it should be done monthly because each month you will need to apply. The other thing I want to talk about is the recovery plans for provinces. So some of the provinces are starting to think about it. Ontario presented their plan. It's very sketchy. It says we will start slowly, and phase one will be bringing on a few smaller businesses, then bringing on construction industry. So each province is doing similar. I think the Quebec has a fairly robust plan. They are planning to open on May 4th and then steadily increase May 11th. So they've actually declared dates on those plans. It's very interesting because Quebec's numbers are still creeping up as opposed to coming down. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from that. Also highlighting here the emergency commerce rent assistance. For those who are small businesses, there is some support for that area, and I encourage you to go look at that. Last week, there was comments on a Canada summer job program, which would provide up to 100% compensation for people between 15 and 30 years of age, which is older than the current program, and goes beyond the summer even into next year, February, I believe the date is. And then each province is working with the government to have a regional relief and recovery plan. And each of those provinces have started to declare those. So things to look out for. So I asked you to think about why people procrastinate, because it'll help you think, well, why do we do that? And there are some interesting studies that I came across that I really want to share with you. This comes from the UK. It was done in 2015, and they asked for reasons why, what are the top most difficult conversations? And this is not just about workplaces, but the top 3 happen to be workplace concerns. The other ones happen to be personal, whether it's sex or relationships. People would rather talk to somebody about a breakup over trying to get a raise or discussing inappropriate behavior. So I found these stats very, very interesting. And in the study, they actually had additional findings that I wanted to share with you as well. More than 50% of workers deal with difficult conversations at least once a month. At least once a month. That is amazing. That means on average, half of us have at least 6 different difficult conversations in a year. And managers feel it the worst in terms of having difficulty because they lack the training to deal with it. The middle managers in particular have that lack, because senior people get more opportunities for training and development. But in the UK, particularly at that time in 2015, there had been a decade of lack of money to make economy grow. And as a result, the budgets did not have sufficient funding for education. 61% of people told them that they learned how to manage they would like to learn how to manage workplace conversations with more confidence. Another study comes out of Utah in 2016, where 1,000 respondents were surveyed, and 72% of them fail to speak up when peers do not pull their weight. Another 68% in the study said they failed to report disrespect, and 57% overlooked failure of important work processes that could lead to costly budget overruns or inaccuracies in the project, which results in the reputation of the company being tainted. In the survey, they also said people estimated that the average person probably loses $7,500 in lost time and resources due to their difficulties with conversations, and 20% estimated $50,000 for their inability to speak up. I don't know how they came to those amounts, but the study asked those questions, and this is the numbers that they came up. These are staggering numbers, but when you think of it, when we don't have a conversation that we should have, think of the productivity that is wasted. Think of the time. It's estimated that people spend 2 weeks or more wasted time thinking of a problem. So, you have to talk to somebody, Bob, about a particular concern about his work performance. And over the course of the 2 weeks, you think about what you're going to do, but you defer. And so that costs time. Besides these hard costs, there's the impact on morale, workplace engagement, building those relationships. As somebody shared, I'm afraid it's going to impact on the relationship that's already fragile. It therefore impacts corporate culture and can impact on getting your projects done on time and even the budget. In this Utah study, they also talked about what are the 5 most common and costly conversations that people have. One is what they called prickly peers. These are the people that are rude, abrasive, disruptive to colleagues. And imagine all the coffee chatter about what that person does and how much avoidance we have about those people that are rude and abrasive. Then another one was called ticking time bombs. These are when you fail to report problems or inaccuracies or faulty thinking. If somebody is, if you're in a project and somebody says, geez, you know, these assumptions are going to lead us down the wrong path. What happens when that occurs? Can you imagine the time spent afterwards when President Trump said you can inject disinfectant that might help you with COVID-19? And the medical officer was actually panned in the the speech that he gave, and she tried to keep a straight face, but can you imagine afterwards all the extra time spent trying to undo what the president of the United States did? Lazy and incompetent colleagues. How many times have we known that people don't pull their weight, but we never say anything? And it may be months before the manager or the business owner gets news of it. And then he or she has to deal with it at that time. Abusive bosses. If I ask you to raise your hand, I'm sure that more than half of the people in the webinar will say they have experienced abusive bosses. How many times have you gone to work and say, I want to ask for my vacation, but I'm going to check to see if my boss is ready for me to ask, because I want to make sure it's the best time to ask so I can get a yes answer. So abusive bosses. And the last one is management chaos, where similar to the abusive bosses, you do not feel comfortable. You do not feel a trusting relationship to be able to say something. It's too risky. So you defer saying it. So these were identified as the most costly combinations. So do you have courage? Do you have courage to be brave? There are so many reasons not to speak up, but there are many reasons to gain the courage to speak up, because there are benefits to having the courage to have those difficult conversations. What I want to share with you right now is tips and strategies for those difficult conversations. So in your mind, think of a conversation that has been difficult for you. And as I'm talking, think about how you might do this one differently now. Or maybe you have one that you've been avoiding for the last couple of weeks, as the statistics say. So think about how you're going to approach it now. So here are my 5 tips and strategies to really help you gain some comfort and later confidence with sharing and having those difficult conversations. One of the things is to start from a place of neutrality. Too often people make an assumption about what they're going to say based on their assessment of the situation. Perhaps a staff member comes to you and says that somebody is not pulling their weight. So now in your mind, you say, this person is not pulling their weight. And so all of your thinking is projecting that and assuming the solution is based on not pulling their weight. I say step back, keep that open mind, and stay in a place of neutrality. So here's an example. You might say the person has been late for the last, 3 times in the last 2 weeks. And so they're not pulling their weight because they're coming in late, maybe they're going home early. Rather than say, I see that you're not coming in early and you're staying and you're going home. You're not coming in on time and you're leaving early. I'm concerned about your work performance. In a place of neutrality, what you would say is, hi, I noticed that you're coming in later each day. I've heard that you've come in 3 times late this week, and you seem to be going home early. that's not like you. Tell me what what what's happening. So depending on the relationship you built, you can say, that's not like you, or I known you for a long time, Jeremy, and I know this isn't like you. Can you share what's going on? If it's a person you're not that excuse me, if it's a person you're not that close with, you just state it. Say, I noticed this. Tell me what's happening. I need to understand. So start with a place of neutrality, and then the next thing is you just listen. And then when you think you've heard enough and you want to say something, you just stop and you listen some more. Sometimes people need that opportunity to share things. And in this case, listening, you might find out this person has had a family illness and they were not sure how to say it, but they were also too upset to talk about it. And they're sorry. So then what your assumption was before becomes more one of empathy. So that's why I said listen and just keep on listening. Sometimes people will come to you and they'll be concerned, and then you almost want to react right away. Let me give you an example of that. I was an ICU manager and had a really, really busy day. I was putting out 4 or 5 different fires. And so I was walking really fast and I was talking quickly. And then when I had my incidences, I was working on that. So it was like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and I was just breathing a sigh of relief that the end of the day had come. And my unit administrator walks into my office, and I could see he was upset. And I thought, oh, one more fire to put out. What is it this time? And so as I listened to him, I said, what's up? And he said, I am so mad at you, Hilda. And I said, in my mind, I thought, oh my God, I don't need one more fire to put out. But I said, okay, tell me what's wrong. And he said, all day long, you've been angry with me. I don't understand why you've been angry. And he proceeded to cite his interpretation of my facial expressions or my energy in a personal way, that I had done something that he'd done something wrong, and I was upset with him. So I listened and I kept on allowing him to vent, and I could see his anger subsiding. And what I did then was said, once I felt that dissipation, that energy level become more neutral and open, I said, I'm sorry you feel that way. So you acknowledge what that person's going through. And that let's talk about it. Can I share with you my day? And, he was still a little bit upset, but he said yes. And I just gave him the high level. So then he realized that everything he interpreted wasn't about him. It was about my day. And then he said, oh, Hilda, I'm so sorry. I thought I had done something and you wouldn't talk to me. And I said, it's okay. It doesn't matter. It's the point that you were upset. I'm really glad you came and talked to me about this. And I'm so glad that we were able to resolve this very quickly. And so he left feeling a little bit guilty, but I said, communication is a two-way street. And when you're uncomfortable, you need to feel better about that. So I think it's really great that you came to me. And what that lesson taught me was the value of listening, and the value that communication is a two-way street, and we need to be open. So start from a place of neutrality, listen, and listen more, and then work to resolve the situation, which Dexter and I had done. Don't be afraid, though, to say you don't know an answer. For example, if I was having that conversation with my client who says, I'm planning to open up, resuming to work, I need to know what to do to be safe. I will give them the answer right now that I know, but don't be afraid, like I won't, to say, I need to check on these 3 things. Let me get back to you. Or I need to get the policy so that I know exactly what you need to do to be safe, and we'll work on the strategies together. So never be afraid to say, I need to follow up and get the answer for you. Because oftentimes, if you're not in a position of power to know what the decision might be. If somebody needs some time off, you have to get approval from whatever policy and processes you have in place, or from the business owner. So you can't answer that question. And you should never say, oh yeah, we'll get you that 2 weeks off for sure, because you don't know for sure what is going to happen. So never be afraid to ask, to provide an answer, and then follow up with what you don't know if you don't know the answer. But do make sure you follow up, because that will build trust. So these are 5 tips. There are other things that you can do, but I think these are the 5 core elements of building a conversation. And the more you practice, the more you will get comfortable. So these will help you work towards strengthening a respectful relationship. So what positive outcomes have you experienced from a workplace conflict? People think, oh my God, I hate workplace conflicts, but there are outcomes. When you better understand others, 33% in that study that we talked about, in a new study from CPP, shared that when people understand, 33% of them felt better. So here are some of the benefits of having positive outcomes: improved work relationships, better solutions to problems and challenges, because when we can speak freely, we can actually have better outputs. Having a high performance team, increasing motivation, major innovation and ideas are born when we are allowed to speak freely. And for some people, 41% say there is no benefit, there are no positives. And what they found in the study, because it was a international study, that depending on what culture people came from and what country, there was a difference. So the respondents that said there really is no benefit to having a workplace conflict conversation, those were countries where there was little education for the managers. Let me share with you one example of a positive outcome. My husband and I, as I said, we're one of the best workplaces in Canada. And part of that is building a strong work culture, having an opportunity where people are valued and respected. And one of the conversations we had was we had to downsize in 2010 as a result of the recession. And what we did was we had already built relationships with our staff. We had to go out to St. Catharines and announce that the St. Catharines office was in jeopardy of closing. And what we did was we shared the announcement to the team. There were 7 people in the office. And then my husband and I each spoke with everybody individually, because that announcement obviously has impacts for them professionally and personally. And I got to speak to Ian, who had 2 10-month-old twins, and I shared with him the personal side and the professional side, and said, we're not sure whether we're closing. We just want to share that we might be closing with everybody. Ian, what do you need me to do? When do you need me to talk to you again? And he said, Hilda, I trust you. I know when the time is right, you will tell me what I need to know. And I still get a little choked up when I talk about that, because I think it helps people, it helped me realize that we had developed a trusting relationship. And these are people in St. Catharines. These are not people who work day to day in the office. We were able to manage remotely a relationship with somebody, to feel that they trusted me, they trusted our company with their livelihood. And so that is a powerful message to me of what people need to do to make sure that they do the right thing. And that's where, I'm proud that we built that company, and we're proud that we built a work culture. And in hindsight, when you step away from something, you can have a clearer picture. And one of the things that I realized what we did was what now I call Rev Up. I needed to articulate to others, what do you need to do to help build a strong work culture, to build trusting relationships, so you can have those difficult and awkward conversations, no matter what the nature is. And so what I want to share with you now, how to create positive, more sustainable relationships. And the concept I came up with was, well, a concept I came up with is an acronym called Rev Up. Think about revving up your company. And Rev Up stands for 5 key words that if you adopt them, you really will help rev up yourself, rev up your team. And those 5 words those 5 letters represent respect. When you respect people, you build trust. Equality, having that open, honest relationship where people are treated as equals, that their roles are equally important. Think about it right now. Our frontline workers out there as essential service workers should be equal to the president, the chair of the board, because the role that each of these people play, whether they're frontline workers, senior executive team members, or board members, they're all playing a role that is equal to the success of an organization. Valued, as in I value you. Learn about your staff. Make them feel valued and important. So many signs now are talking about our frontline healthcare workers and thanking them for being there. Every time I go to the grocery store, I thank that person for coming to work today. Then the other thing is uniqueness. We are all unique individuals with various strengths and abilities. Focus on what those uniquenesses are in individuals. That way you can tap into the potential. Imagine what could happen if you treated people with respect and equality, valued them for who they are, looked at that uniqueness that they have, and tap into that potential. Imagine if you did that for yourself. Imagine if you did that as a manager for your team and as a business owner for your whole company. Imagine the productivity. Imagine the impact on a changing work culture where people should approach each other. That's what I want to share with you, is that that's a formula for success and building it long term. And I think the example that I gave you about our employees in St. Catharines is an example of how Rev Up, which I couldn't articulate as Rev Up back then, had an impact on having those difficult and awkward conversations. One other thing I wanted to share with you is Fascination Advantage. It's an assessment tool, and it's different than some of the others like DISC or Myers-Briggs in that the Fascination tool looks at how people see you, and how you see the world, and how you speak languages of prestige or power, innovation. I just want to briefly highlight that because each one of us is unique, and each one of us talks in different ways. Some people speak with the language of creativity. Those out-of-the-box thinkers, have these great ideas. Some people speak with a language of relationship or confidence or excellence, stability, listening, or details. You need all these people to be part of your team. And when you learn about how people speak with a certain language, you can tap into that uniqueness. And what I love about the Fascination Advantage tool is it really does help people understand who they are, and then from a team building perspective, understand how other people are. Because when you speak the language that you do naturally, then people believe what you're saying. You speak with confidence. So I won't share too much about that right now, because I know I want to get onto the question and answer period. But this is how I help people understand how unique they are and how unique other members are, to be able to really tap into how you rev up people's potential. So just in summary, what I want to share with you today is these final 3 things. Be brave to confront, because if you do, you will enhance employee engagement, you will create a more positive, respectful work culture, and you will improve productivity. Be open-minded and listen. That listening is such a key thing because it helps people feel valued and validated. It will save dollars. It will save project timelines and budgets. And then consider adopting a philosophy of connecting with Rev Up. Be respectful, treat people with equality, value them, look at their uniqueness, and tap into that potential. How can we help? One of the things that we at People Bright were thinking is there are so many tough decisions people are making, whether it's about returning to work and the safety, whether it's about all these different subsidies, or even having difficult conversations. And what we decided to do was offer a 2-hour, what I call retainer package, for people to call when and as they needed, up to 2 hours worth of time. And we're doing it at half the normal cost. So for $300, you will get up to 2 hours worth of time of myself and teams. And right now we're adding a bonus of 30 minutes of a strategic call with me. And for the first 10 people that register for this, we will actually provide a HR self-assessment audit, so that if you're a business owner or even an HR decision maker, you know all the things you need to do to be compliant and have a strong organization. Here are some of the resources that are articles that I think will be beneficial to you, as well as some of the resources for COVID-19. Some of our upcoming sessions will be here, but I'll share that, but if you have your questions, start to think about them, because I'm going to share these and then we're going to open it up for questions. We do sessions every Wednesday and Friday at 10 o'clock. And the one this week on Friday will be about case studies. I will actually go in and give you some examples and share how you would talk about them. And we'll do it as a group. I'll open it up for discussion so people can add input, ask questions. Next Wednesday, we are going to talk about cash control, know your numbers and grow for the future. Tracy Bissett will be the guest with Bissett Financial Fitness. She is also has a webinar called Young Money for people to become millionaires, young people. Upcoming will be how to ramp up your business when business resumes. And I have a group benefit coordinator, Aviva Abraham, talking on group benefits. So questions, people?
Yeah, we have one here. She asks, how do I ask what my role will be once returning to the office? I was promoted to HR administrator last year and barely included in anything HR, but they love throwing different projects at me non-HR related. We just let a bunch of people go and I was kept apparently to the duties. How do I ask what I will be returning to without being too pushy? I feel like they love that I am a hard worker, but I am tired of being taken advantage of.
Excellent question, because I think HR should be at the table, making decisions, having support. You think about who you're talking to, what kind of bosses you have, and what would be the best approach for them. Remember how I talked about the Fascination Advantage? Sorry, this particular slide. And if they seem like the person who is a listener, that's one thing. But if they're more power and passionate, then you need to angle the discussion this way. But in general, first of all, just say, I really like working at this company. These are the things that I really enjoy. What I'd like to talk about is, what do you see me returning to? What role should I play? I need to think about this more. But what the bottom line is, you want to say, I want to do more. Here is what I'm capable of doing. So you may want to have your 30-second elevator pitch, I'll call it. Say, I enjoy this role, but I would love to do more. During COVID-19, here are some of the things that I could help with. As we open the doors, these are some of the things I want to share that I can do. And I'm wondering if you see how I can do more to help in this way. So it's a dialogue with some suggestions, but to sell who you are, what you're capable of. I know you don't want to do some of the other roles, but maybe you can say, this is what I did, and then show how you could do that in an HR capacity. The other thing is educating them the role, what HR is and what we are capable of doing. No time in the history of my career, and it spans more than 25 plus years, have I seen where HR is now called upon to use all of their expertise in people skills, in compliance, in understanding the legislation and the impacts of the legislation. And I know in talking to some of my colleagues, they are new, so they don't have the experience of deciding, 3 steps ahead what I should be doing. If I do this, what's the outcome of that? So I hope those are a bit of scattered ideas. I'd be happy to, for you to do a one-on-one call with me, and it can help bolster your confidence if that would be good. And are there other questions, Jenny?
Not yet. So if everyone, if you would like to put your questions in the chat box, feel free to do so, but also unmute yourself if you want to have a direct conversation with Hilda. And last but not least, share with me privately if you want to share a question anonymously.
Conversations are always so difficult, and you want to say stuff in the most respectful and neutral way. Will you get it right? Not always, because communication's a two-way street, right? It's not just what you say, it's what they say, and it's how each of you perceives what the other person is saying. Any other questions? Well, we're coming up to, Jenny?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, there is one. So this person is a manager of a team of 5, and the higher ups want to terminate one of my team members. I have a great relationship with this team member, been with him for over 5 years. So as a person stuck in the middle, how should I relay this message? Sorry. How should I relay this message to this team member?
Okay, so what's the scenario again? I missed that part. Because I got the part that the person's in the middle, but what? Yeah.
So the higher ups want to terminate his team member, his or her, sorry, and he or she has a great relationship with this team member, but as a person stuck in the middle, how should I relay this message?
Okay, so is the person being terminated, and are you the HR person that's doing the termination? Or are you just a friend, like a coworker who's a friend, and that person will be terminated? I'm kind of confused.
No. I believe this person is the manager of that team, right? So he's not he or she is not a HR person.
Okay, and that somebody higher up says you got to terminate this person, and you're the manager that has to relay this.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, so you will actually be doing the termination, and you can't kind of hint at it beforehand. You have to do it at the time. And typically when a person's being terminated, it's 2 people in the room. It's the manager and it's the individual, and the HR person, so that it's being shared. These are one of the difficult conversations that you have. If you have an ongoing relationship with that person after the fact, yes, it will be strained. But depending on the relationship you have with the person, first of all, you have to do the termination. And typically in a termination, you have that discussion, but you essentially read the letter and have mini discussion, but never is there a long discussion. Usually the reason for people leaving is without cause, and so you don't get into details of that. If you have a conversation with that person, you can say, I'm sorry that this has had to happen, and as the manager, I have to carry this out. you have to balance the fact that you can't take sides, but you can say that this is tough for you, I know, and it's also tough for me because I value the relationship that we've had. And if you need to talk on a personal level afterwards, I'm happy to do that. So again, I don't know the relationship, and you and I are not having this dialogue, but if you've had a strong working relationship with somebody, as I did, I had to terminate my boss one day. We continued the conversation on a personal, professional level afterwards to talk about his perspective, but I actually had to be respectful of my company as well. We still keep in touch today, 3 years later. So there is that professional side and the personal side, and it really depends on the relationship you've had and when you're stuck in the middle. I hope that answers your question. Sometimes you're stuck in the middle. I had to terminate somebody when I was a manager in intensive care, and that person really, I felt, did no wrong. And the HR person said I had to terminate her, so I did. It went on to arbitration, and the person was reinstated, and I had to respectfully create a relationship with the person that I reinstated. She understood that I was caught in the middle by the tone of the voice that I used when I terminated her, by the look on my face that when I terminated her. So hope those two different scenarios will help you figure out what you might do. But again, I would encourage you to have a one-on-one conversation with me if you would like. Any other questions? I know we're a little over time, but questions are always good. Well, I'd like to thank everybody. Jenny?
No, I think that's it, yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to thank everybody today for joining us. I know people who were registered and unable to join will get a copy, as will all of you, of the presentation as well as the slides. So it will be on YouTube to hear it and see it, and then there'll be slides to copy. So thank you very much for taking your time. If you are interested in having some session with the case studies where we will talk and discuss these scenarios further, I'm happy to see you join us. So thank you very much, and stay safe. Thanks. Bye.